Hello everyone, here I'm back with another video lecture, and today we are going to discuss the standard reference terminology. So, to describe human movement accurately, we use specific terms that help us communicate clearly. These terms are basically essential in healthcare, sports, rehabilitation. Okay, so in this lecture, we are going to explain the basic reference positions and the important direction terms in a simple way. Okay, we can just discuss all of these things in a very briefly or in a very simple way. Okay, so starting from the anatomical reference position, the anatomical reference position is basically the standard posture. Okay, it was not a natural posture of your body in a standing position, as you can just stand it like that, and you can just take this position as a standard position just to use describe body movements and positioning. Okay, so body positioning for body movements to start any of the movement like flexion extensions, you can just discuss these movements in the patient. You can just take your patient, or you can just take any of the anatomical posture positioning, or you can just any of the procedures, and taken these as a anatomical reference position is basically take it as a standard. Okay, it helps us have a common starting point. Okay, the positioning is basically standing upright. Okay, you just need to make an erect posture. Feet are slightly apart or separated. Arms are relaxed at the side, and palms are facing forward. That means palms have to be faced forward. So, because this is not a natural standing positioning, it is widely accepted as a standard reference position for describing body positioning and movements. Even though you know that it is not a natural standing posture, but if you can form this posture on yourself, you have seen that there are many things that is basically also used in a standing position as well, in a normal standing position, like the way you stand as a human being. So we can just see this in a from a picture. You can just see this from a figure here in this area. So what was happening is basically feet are slightly apart. Your patient or any of the person you are basically taken as an example is standing in a erect position. Arms are basically facing forward. Palms of the arms are basically in the forward direction, and you can just take these arms are basically in a relaxed position as you have seen here. Okay, with that, you have seen that full posture is in erect position, aligned with your basically legs are aligned with your shoulder. Okay, you just take your shoulders as an example, and you can just take this. Feet have to be just slightly apart, like your shoulders are apart from your head. Okay, usually you can just take this as an example. Okay, so basically, this is the anatomical reference position. Okay, now, after discussing the anatomical reference position, we can just go in on the terms, or basically the directional terms. Okay, we can just first highlight this. Okay, the directional terms. Okay, so basically, what was happening here is directional terms helps us describe the location of body parts in relation to each other. Okay, these terms are especially useful for medical professionals when basically giving instructions or making assessments, clinical assessments, and other than that, body movements, discussing the patient's movements. So we can just medical professionals use these terms to discuss many of the other things and also giving instructions as well. Okay, so you have seen here the common direction terms are superior, inferior, anterior, posterior, medial, lateral, proximal, and distal, superficial, and deep. These are the 10 major positions you have to discuss here. Okay. Superior basically on a simple word means above. Okay. Closer to the head. Something if something is closer to your head, that means that is called as superior. Okay. Inferior, something is away from the head or farther from the head. That means something is below from the head is basically inferior. Okay. Superior, you can just take an example. The head is superior to the chest, and the feet are superior. inferior to the chest. So majorly you have taken an example, basically taken chest as an center, and if you can just see here, the head is superior to the chest, and basically feet are inferior from the chest. So majorly this is the example of superior and inferior. It is also termed as basically the cranial and caudal in a zoology. Okay. After that, interior and posterior. Interior is something towards the front of your body. Basically, if you can just, your patient enters from the door and you have seen that the part that is in front of you is basically the front part of the body. Okay. Now all the parts of the body that you have seen from this eye without causing any change in his posture is basically the structures that are the interior, basically interior of the a body. Other than that, also something else, or you can just take anatomical reference position as a reference to discuss this. The parts you have seen in anatomical reference position in front of all the from the on the in the whole body is basically the anterior components, and the other are the posterior components. So that is basically anterior, that towards the front of the body, and basically posterior towards the back of the body. So majorly you can just take an example of any of the thing like anterior part. The chest is anterior to the spine and the spine is posterior to the chest. Majorly you can just take this an example. The chest is in front, so that means the chest is anterior to the spine. Spine is the posture that is present on the back, so that means spine is posterior to the chest. So majorly we have taken this as example. After that, medial, that means middle, and lateral, that means side. Okay, remember these words: medial, middle, lateral, sides. Okay, so that means closer to the center of the body. Something, if something is closer to the center of the body, that means that is medial. So that means nose is medial to the ears. Okay, you can just take this an example. And lateral, away from the center of the body, that means ears are lateral to the nose. So that means you have taken this an example. Nose is medial to the ears because this is present in the center of the body, and ears because these are present on the side. So we have taken this as example. Ears are lateral to the nose. So because we have to discuss this in a anatomy and in a biomechanical procedure, so we have to discuss these terms in a very deeply, okay, in a very depth. So after that, proximal is basically something closer to the body center. That means near to where the limb attached to the body. Okay, so the elbow is proximal to the wrist because elbow is closer to the shoulder because shoulder is attached to the body. So that means elbow is closer to the, sorry, proximal to the wrist, and wrist is distal to the elbow because distal means farther from the body center, because farther from where a limb attaches to the body. So majorly elbow is proximal to the wrist and wrist is proximal to the, wrist is distal to the elbow. So majorly you can just take one example and fluctuate the things because proximal is something closer to the body and distal is something farther away from the body. Okay, after that, superficial and deep. Okay, superficial is basically something on a surface level. Okay, you can just see here the areas or the skin that is superficial to the muscles. You can just see that something is basically closer to the surface of the body, the front, or you can just say that the mm, something that is closer to the environment. Okay, you can just take this an example. Something that is closer to the environment is superficial. Deep is something that is inside, in the deeper part of your body, that is called as inside the body. Okay, located something deeper is basically the uh, term used as deep. Okay, so that means skin is superficial to the muscles and muscles are deep from the skin. Okay, muscles are present in a deep to the skin. Okay, majorly you can just take one example and discuss this in a very good way. So majorly we are using these directional terms to help us describe the body positioning and movements. So learning them is important because in a medical and therapy professionalist, or as a therapist, as a doctor, you have to ensure accurate communication with the other medical professionalist as well. So anatomical reference position is basically the standard posture for describing movement, and the direction terms is describe where body parts in a relation to each other. So understanding these terms make it easier to explain and analyze body movements correctly. So majorly this is all about today's lecture. So thanks for watching. If you have any query, you can ask, and me hope so you have understand everything. So thanks for watching.